what's going on YouTube? Alright, so full disclosure, I'm a little frustrated right now. I've been trying to tell you guys about Egypt for an hour, but my phone keeps going off. So that is rectified, and so let's talk about Egypt. Alright, so in my previous video, Journey to Redemption, I spoke about how it's incredibly useful to visualize your journey to redemption as the story of the Israelites being delivered out of Egypt into the wilderness and then onto the promised land. And basically how in your journey to redemption that you are really going to be in only one of three places, generally speaking, and that is Egypt, the wilderness, or the promised land. Today we're going to talk about Egypt. And how do you know if you're in Egypt? Well, most of your long-term aims will be all about fulfilling you. It'll be fulfilling needs that you have, and they are centered around you. Okay? Everything that you're doing will be centered around you. Okay? It will be, for the most part, pretty selfish. Okay? And I guess in and of itself, as long, you may have the mentality, well, okay, so maybe that's true. Maybe I am selfish, but I'm not hurting anyone, right? Or maybe you are. Either way, the mentality of focusing on yourself. The issue is when you don't put other people forward, it makes it incredibly difficult to form relationships with other people, and you miss out on what goodness, okay, and love and beauty. You miss out on a lot of those things that actually give deep fulfillment to your life. Now, I guess we could go into a whole bunch just right there. There's a lot to unpack, but just understand that when you are in Egypt, you are doing things that hurt people that you care about, okay? Or maybe they don't. Maybe you have nobody you care about, okay? Maybe that is maybe that's a place you're finding yourself in right now, and you are justifying whatever you're doing, even though you know it's wrong, okay? And you're justifying it for whatever reason, and things aren't changing. They're not getting better, okay? And you're continuously chasing after something more. Okay, and most of the time it just ends up being like, well, I'm gonna plan this next trip. Okay, I'll go climb this next mountain, or I will buy this new car, or I will buy these new pair of shoes, or I'll steal. Either way, or I'll get high. I will find that fulfillment that is deeply missing in my life. I will find it in this next thing. And what we find in Egypt is that when we go on that trip, when we take the hit of whatever we're doing, or when we steal, or when we indulge in, debauchery, okay, when we do this, we find that it's pleasing in the moment, and then it fades, and then we want to do it again. And at the end of it, we actually feel deeply unfulfilled. That's Egypt. And that is always a cycle that will continue to go on in Egypt. Okay? It may be pleasurable at times. That's not to say that there's no happiness in Egypt. Homeless people have happiness at times. Okay? Addicts have happiness at times. Prostitutes have happiness at times. Everyone has happiness at times. But happiness at the end of the day is fleeting, temporary. And what we are looking for is fulfillment, contentment, okay? Lasting joy, okay? This is the problem. This is the thing that Christians recognize, is that there's nothing in this life that will continuously give you joy. Okay, nothing that actually exists on this earth will do that for you. There's no amount of money. Okay, there's no size of house. There is no place that you can go and travel and experience. And there's nothing you can discover that is going to give you those types of things. And there's no drug that you're going to smoke or snort or shoot that's going to do this for you either. Lasting, in a lasting way. I mean, you might say, well, for an hour, okay, that's fine. But again, it's killing you. And you are ultimately, it's a lie. It's a fabricated experience that came from a chemical, and it actually has no impact other than you, right? And it may serve to actually hurt those that care about you, and maybe you don't care about them. I mean, that's when you're in Egypt. That's how you know. If you don't care about the people you know who care about you, you're most likely in Egypt. You're probably not watching this video right now if you're in Egypt. Or if you are, you're doing it in a way that is cynical to sit there and justify every single thing that you do, and you're trying to find the holes in all of my arguments. And, you know, maybe there are holes. I'm sure there are. I mean, but these are my thoughts. So either way, these are my observations of people in Egypt. Okay, and if this hits a little too close to home for some of you, that's a good sign that you are in Egypt. You may be on the border, ready to go into the wilderness, but beware. The wilderness is tough. It is hard. Understand the reason why the wilderness is so difficult, okay, is that you do without the comforts that were in Egypt. And you learn to sustain yourself off of your relationship with the Father, or in the secular perspective, the highest possible good that you can manifest in your mind. Okay? Now, for Christians, that's God, that's Jesus, right? So if you don't have something like that, something that's as powerful, well, you're going to be in a real bind, because life is not letting up on the suffering it will dish out at you. Okay, your circumstances are not necessarily going to change. This is what can change within you. This allows you to change in a way that enables you to handle life's inevitable storms, because life is definitely going to have some storms. I mean, that is promised. That is guaranteed. That's in the Bible, and that is also probably a part of your experience as well. So that's not changing anytime soon. So the only way to really change is to focus on you. It's to focus on the elements that are within your control. And that may not be a whole lot, okay? But it can certainly start with a mindset, but it needs to be followed through with action. And it's when you start living this authentic truth, this authentic life, that is when you start to experience change. And change is not always fun. Most of the time it's not, especially when we're talking about being delivered out of Egypt into the wilderness. Because, you know, if you read in the Bible, you know, in Exodus, you know, the Israelites would complain to Moses, and they're like, all you did was deliver us out into the wilderness so we could starve to death. I mean, that's heavy. And that's also something you're looking at from Egypt. When you are in Egypt, you're looking at those people in the wilderness. You're like, well, I'm having a better time. And that's true. You are having a better time. That is absolutely true. But they're in Egypt, or they are in the wilderness. Those people that are in the wilderness, they are in the wilderness to have something better than what you have in Egypt. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't come at a cost. It absolutely comes with a cost. But those people in the wilderness had the courage to pay that cost. Now, they may not have the endurance to see it through, and a lot don't. Okay? They wandered for 40 years. And the first generation had to die because of those ways of Egypt were so entrenched in those people that even Moses didn't get to see the promised land. So, I mean, it really requires a dying of the self. It is really painful when you go into Egypt, especially when you're first starting out. Because while you're in Egypt, you have all your comforts that you've already established for yourself. And let's be honest, you know, if we make things just comfortable enough, we can withstand a lot of junk being thrown at us. But if you are tired of it only being that good and you only get these very, very fleeting moments of happiness, it may be time for you to go through the wilderness. Or at least consider it, because in the end, when you are in Egypt, you really just can't see past your own suffering. And like I said, it is based upon you. And these habits and this mentality serve to keep you just happy enough to keep you in Egypt, being a slave to Pharaoh. Or, in a better terms, you're a slave to yourself. You're a slave to your libido. If let's say let's say your sin is pornography, you're a slave to your libido. You can't stop. You're a slave to it, and you must indulge it. There are things you'd probably rather be doing, but there you are looking at pornography on the internet. There are things you'd rather be doing rather than chasing money to get your next high. There are things you'd rather be doing than telling a lie. How about living the truth? And what if at one point when you're telling a fantastic story, it could actually be the truth, as opposed to just a lie? That you're just lying. You consistently lie, and you lose track of the truth and the lies. You can't even tell the difference between the two now. This is what Egypt is. This is you being imprisoned. It's the same thing as being institutionalized. If you've just been in prison for so long that you just don't know another way, nor do you care to find one, because you know what? You've finally gotten used to it. That's Egypt. That is Egypt. So I just want to leave you guys with this. Just understand, just a recap, is that Egypt, it really is going to be about you. It's going to be selfish. Okay? It's not going to be about other people. All right? These are signs that you are in Egypt right now. That you are solely focused on what makes you happy, and to heck with the world, right? And you solely focus on you and yours. And that's an issue, because if you're wanting true, authentic happiness, it's going to require other people. And we're going to kind of leave it right here for Egypt right now. But we'll talk about, in the next video, we'll talk about the wilderness and why that's an important journey to go through, and how you should rejoice if you are in the wilderness right now. Now, granted, it's hard to say, rejoice in your pain, but it's understanding that that is used for something. But we'll cover that in the next video. But just right now, I want you to understand and just think about where you are. Are you in Egypt right now? And if you are, maybe it's time to start reassessing what life is all about, right? Maybe it's time to, start getting your affairs in order, moving towards the border, and trusting in a much higher ideal than you have been trusting in, which is you, basically. You're the master of your own destiny. And when you set that aside, when you're like, no, no, I'm tired of trying to do things my way, and you settle for another way, a better way, one that is focused on the best possible good, single mindedly, then that's when you start taking steps into the wilderness. And you start taking the steps necessary to change in a way that is ultimately far more positive than anything that you can currently visualize. And that's when you start to work on your up and your in. But we'll talk about that in the next video. So if you like this video, I'd appreciate a like. If you want to hear more, I would appreciate a subscription. And more importantly, I would like to know if you think you are in Egypt and what your Egypt even looks like. What are the things that are keeping you down? Don't have to get specific if you don't want to, but understand that maybe somebody in the comment section needs to hear what you're saying. And maybe, I don't know, maybe you can help somebody out to get into the wilderness that's stuck in Egypt. And they may curse you for it too. So, because that's part of it. That is part of it. There is definitely a lament when you get into the wilderness, but we will certainly talk more about the wilderness in another video. So I thank you for watching. Yeah, so we'll leave it there.